Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a requested video. A couple of you guys, and one in particular, Suzette, hey girl, have asked me to do like an overall HR tips vlog. Hold on, let me turn this fan off because this, I'm sure, distracting. Hold on. Okay, so sorry about that. It should be stopping in just a second. Okay, so Suzette in particular asked for some HR, overall HR vlog. So I'm gonna kind of hit on some tips for you guys. Y'all know me, I made a list, so I got my list right here. And just kind of give you a brief overview. So just to give you a little history, how I actually ended up in HR, because I am actually was formally trained as an elementary school teacher. So I did my undergraduate work at Howard University, where I received a bachelor's in elementary education with a minor in special education. Probably hence the reason why I really like that show, Born This Way, because of those young adults have special needs. And I got my water, y'all, sorry. So after graduating, I taught for almost 3 years in the local public school system. And due to my father passing and, you know, just some life things, I rekindled an old flame that ended up burning out again. But anyway, I relocated to North Carolina. And while I was there, I pursued my master's. But at the time when I was moving down there, I didn't plan to get my master's in human resources. So I'm going to tell you how that happened. So I interviewed and I got a teaching position down in North Carolina. But keep in mind, I'm moving from Maryland, DC area to North Carolina. So the cost of living is a lot less, especially at that time. So once I figured out my salary, I was like, wait a minute, I have bills and car payments and stuff based on my income in Maryland. I'm not going to be able to afford this. So I have my best friend at the time. Well, she still is my best friend, but at the time she was working for a company called Aerotech, and she was in HR. And she said, well, we have an opening in the Greensboro office. Send me your resume and I'll see what I could do. So long story short, I got the job in HR at Aerotech, and that's how my HR career began. And I fell in love with HR from day one, and that's why I decided to pursue my master's degree at North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride, and got my master's in human resources. So that's how I ended up in human resources, and I started off as an HR assistant, and that's kind of how it happens, guys. You start off like an HR assistant, and you have to work your way up through the ranks, because experience is very important. Now I'm not saying that's how it is all the time, but generally that's the path. And so I've been in HR ever since, including that start at Aerotech since 1998. So, and I also teach HR coursework now part-time, so HR gives you a lot of flexibility. So I started off, like I said, as an HR assistant. Then I worked my way up to like an HR specialist, and I did payroll, so I was like HR/payroll specialist. And then I moved on. This is past Aerotech. This is just my career in general. I've moved around and went to different industries. So I relocated back to Maryland and took a job as an HR specialist at Time Life, which is like, the CD people you see on the infomercials. So I worked with them for a year, and then they ended up outsourcing their HR department to New York because Reader's Digest purchased them. So I switched to an HR specialist for DC public schools. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. I got my school system experience and my HR experience. This is a beautiful marriage. At that same time, I had applied for HR specialist position with the school system where I used to teach as well, because that's closer to my home. Well, when your job is being outsourced, you got to get a job. So DC called me first. So I worked there for right at 4 months, and then the local district called me So I was able to go back there and get credit for my service, teaching there and everything. Now, do I recommend working a job and leaving after 4 months? No. But this was a special circumstance, so it happened. Have I made a habit of that? No. And I don't advise you to do that, because that's not good to look like you're jumping around. So I started working as an HR specialist in the staffing and recruitment for my local school system, and I was there for almost 8 years. And they did a reduction in force, which actually started my whole YouTube journey. That's, when I explained to y'all why I was on YouTube. I was telling you about my journey of being jobless. I called it Jobless Journey. I also chronicled that on Instagram. And yeah, so that whole thing of being unemployed and doing interviews and all that, I shared that. So if you go back and look at my early YouTube videos, that's what you'll see. So I ended up getting a job as an HR generalist after that at my church. And I worked there for 1.5 years and decided, even though I enjoyed working in my church, it just was difficult, working where you worship. So I applied for some government jobs, and that's how I landed where I am now in the District of Columbia, or DC government, working as an HR generalist. So that's my overview. So as I mentioned, I started off in staffing and recruiting. So that's where you're looking for, employees for your organization. So you're doing job fairs, you're doing cold calls, you're, sifting through resumes, you're recruiting. And then the whole staffing piece comes in once they come on board. You bring them on board, your onboarding process, as they call it, the whole pre-boarding, when you're checking references and that kind of thing, the interview process. But once they're onboarded, their life cycle as an employee begins. So that's where the bulk of my experiences in staffing and recruiting. Now I'm doing something a little different. I'm doing employee and labor relations, which I enjoy. It is very, it can be heavy sometimes. You're dealing with unions. If you work in a union environment, you're dealing with employee relations, disgruntled employees that are violating policies, but there is some good things too. There is happy employee relations when, you do team building activities, wellness activities, that kind of thing. That's the HR as a whole, so you look at the whole employee, their performance, their training and development, that kind of thing, all of that. I do want to kind of do more training and development. I am doing that now in my role. The training I've done so far has been sexual harassment training, which is mandatory every year, especially for new employees, and progressive discipline, training managers how to discipline and the correct way and legal way to discipline. And, I want to continue to do that because I think that pulls on my teaching experience. Like I said, I also teach part-time at, Strayer. So I'm a teacher by nature. I have done benefits and payroll. Out of all the different facets of HR, that would be my least favorite. But I have done it. Payroll is a lot. You never want to mess up people's check, and just people got to get paid. So it's a very high stress job, or can be. And of course, benefits, people have to have benefits, and benefits changes and coverages, etc. That can be a lot as well, but I have done that. Job search tips. I try to tell people to always, look at job searching as a job. So like when I was unemployed, my job every day was to find a job. So I set a limit on how many jobs I wanted to apply for a day, and I did that, and it varied based on what was out there and what kind of hits I was getting. But that was my job. I set up shop. I was either at home, or I would go to Starbucks, or I would meet my friend at Wegmans Cafe, which is a grocery store that has a cafe with Wi-Fi, and we would sit there and have lunch and apply for jobs. And so make looking for a job your full-time job, and apply for stuff you're eligible for, guys. Yeah, I say shoot for the stars, but if you know you only have a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree, don't apply for a job that requires, a certain level of education or experience. If you just graduated from college, you don't have 10 years experience. So why are you applying for this job that asks you have 10 years experience? You're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment, because you're going to get that sorry you're not qualified letter. And that doesn't feel good, especially when you are qualified and get it. So, don't set yourself up like that. Interview tips. I always say be professional, dress for success. So that means even though you might love your red, green, blue nails, keep it conservative. I know times are changing, but guys, some things don't change. Now, I'm not saying you have to wear your black suit or blue suit, but you need to look presentable. No jeans, maybe some dress slacks, a nice skirt and top, and some nice flat shoes or pumps, or some nice heels, but not stilettos like stripper shoes. Don't wear that. So I could do a whole nother video on that, so I'm not even gonna go into that. But make sure you dress for success. When you're doing your benefits, someone asked that I kind of elaborate on benefits. Like I said, I haven't done benefits in 3 years now, so things have changed, but some things remain the same. So you have your open enrollment. Always, I say, do your research. Know which plans you have, what changes you want to make, what coverage you want. Sign up for that short-term disability if you think you're going to need it. And some people say sign up for it anyway because you never know. But short-term disability, long-term disability, maybe even AFLAC. Like, do your research. If you have retirement plans at your, company, do the research with that. Like, we have a company that administers our retirement. So I've made an appointment and talked to them, and see where I am, see how much I need to be putting in for my retirement. What is the match? That goes for your 401k and tax shelter annuities, all that. Do your research and make sure you know, and prepare for that rainy day. And sometimes they have the open enrollment where you have your retirement people there, your benefits people there, your AFLAC people, your short-term disability, like everybody's there. Even if you're not changing anything to your coverage, go, just because you never know what may have changed that you didn't know about. Go and see what's different, compare plans, compare what's, best for you. You might need to take out a little extra life insurance or whatever. You never know. And do your retirement checkups. Like I said, check in with your retirement yearly, if not twice a year, to make sure whatever you're investing in, if that's how it's set up, is being lucrative for you. And just HR, just general HR tips. Guys, we spend our majority of our day with our coworkers. And that could be good, bad, or indifferent. But go to work, do your job. This is, I'm making this plea as HR. Just go to work and do your job and try to be the best at your job and get along with your coworkers. I promise you, life will be a whole lot easier if you have that mindset. I could go on and just share story after story after story of just crazy stuff that I've encountered with employees. And I'm like, guys, this is work. This is not high school. Y'all, I'm sorry, the phone is ringing. I'm not answering it. Yes, I still have a house phone. But this is work. This is not high school. This is not elementary school. I actually had someone mad because her coworker was staring at her. And they never had any words with each other, but she came to see me because the girl was looking at her. Really, ma'am? If you were doing your work, you wouldn't see her looking at you. Like, no lie. This is the kind of stuff I deal with. And be honest, I have to meet with a lot of employees that are lying about their work, or, just not being truthful and making bad decisions at work. Like, it's not the dating game. You can't cuss them out. You're not on the street. Like, just be professional. And a good thing, I tell my students this too. Anything you do, make sure if your mother was seeing it, your father was seeing it, your grandkids, your kids, your spouse, or Jesus the Christ himself, Buddha, Jehovah, whoever you worship, if they were sitting at the table or sitting beside you in the next cube, would you do that? That's the way I look. Like, sometimes at my old job, me and my coworker, to keep ourselves in line, we would say, yeah, all right, we're going to pretend like Jesus is sitting in that empty desk. And so whatever we do today, we're going to be on point because Jesus is watching, you know, just for fun. But I mean, really, you got to think about it like that. If someone you love or respect would see you doing whatever you're doing or not doing, if you're supposed to be working, you're sitting there surfing the internet, yeah, we can find that out too. Would you do it if you knew someone was watching? That's a good way, a good parameter or guideline to go by. And guys, speaking of surfing and doing stuff at work, stop. Don't post everything on social media about your, ooh, I can't stand my boss. This place, my job is the worst. Y'all, that social media thing is real and it will get you fired. Please trust and believe. And speaking of leaves and benefits, if you're on family medical leave, which is an approved medical leave law that you're supposed to use to either care for yourself or a loved one, don't put in that you're out on FMLA because you're having surgery and then you're posting on Facebook that you're on the Carnival Cruise Line. Yeah, it happens. So guys, just be professional. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I hope this was helpful. I know it was just really a brief, very brief overview. But if you have specific questions that you want me to talk about, because HR is very broad and can go in many directions. Like I said, you have staffing and development, staffing and recruiting, training and development, benefits administration, payroll and compensation. You have employee and labor relations or just employee relations, you know, so there are very different avenues I could discuss. So if you have specific questions that I can answer or either point you in the right direction, like, hey, Stacy, I'm having this issue. Who should I talk to? What steps should I take? I'd be glad to answer those. Any kind of staffing, like if you're looking for a job or need interview tips or something, or have a question on how things, what questions to ask, what not to ask, leave those down below and I'd be glad to help you. So I hope this was helpful. Suzette, here you go. If you need more, girlfriend, please let me know. You guys have a blessed day and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. Take care.